It started with sirens loud ones, too. Not the kind you hear faint in the distance and figure someone else's bad day is passing by. No, these were right on my private gravel road, kicking up dust like they were after a fugitive. Only thing is, the fugitive was apparently me. I was hauling hay at the time, sun barely up, with my dog Tucker trotting along beside me like always, when this puffed-up lady in a leopard blouse starts screaming at my gate like I'd stolen her purse or something. I didn't recognize her right off, but I didn't need to. The moment she hollered, "He's threatening me with livestock," and waved her phone around like she was filming a hostage standoff, I figured it out, HOA trouble. Sure enough, as the cruisers rolled up behind her in full lights and drama, one door swings open and out steps my son, Sheriff Blake Grady, who takes one look at her, then at me, and says with a smirk, "Hi, Dad." She nearly passed out. Now, let me rewind a little so this all makes sense. I'm Cal VYN Grady. Most folks around Fairview EU just call me Cal. I've lived on this ranch since I was knee-high, raised cattle, built fences, lost my wife, raised my son. This land's older than the pavement that runs through town, and it's seen more seasons than any of those HOA bylaws could ever dream up. But last fall, a new subdivision popped up across the county road, White Rock Preserve. Fancy name for some cookie-cutter houses and folks who think a VYNYL fence makes them a landowner. At first, it was fine. They waved, I waved. But then came Margot. Real name, though folks took to calling her Karen behind her back, and honestly, I think she liked it. Drove a white SUV with a vanity plate that said CMND4R, walked around with a clipboard like she was deputized by the governor, and had an HOA badge she printed herself, far as I could tell. The first time she showed up, she taped a note to my fence about how my barn didn't meet community VY-SUL standards. I composted it. The second time, she marched up while I was tending to a leaky trough, demanding I remove the unsafe structure near the road. She meant my windmill put up by my granddad back in '59. I told her, "Ma'am, if that windmill's unsafe, then your SUV's a weapon of mass destruction." She didn't laugh. I did. Didn't take long for things to spiral. She started filing complaints about my rooster crowing, the smell of manure, even Tucker barking at the moon. None of it stuck, but she kept trying. And then one day she said the phrase that made me realize this woman wasn't just bored, she was dangerous. She said, "We're exploring eminent domain options to beautify the shared VYEW corridors." View corridors. That's HOA speak for, we want to control what we can see, even if it ain't ours. And that's when I knew this wasn't going to stay funny for long. So I did what any rational rancher would do. I called my son. Well, didn't say much, just told me to start recording everything. So I did. Every clipboard VY SID, every fake citation, every trespass. I even put up motion cameras, camouflaged ones, because folks like Margot don't think they can be caught. They think they are the law. That morning she called the cops on me. It wasn't cause she feared for her life, it was because she wanted to win. Wanted me scared. Problem was, she didn't know who she was messing with. And when Will stepped out of that cruiser and called me Dad in front of her, the whole performance collapsed. She started stammering about community safety and livestock endangerment, like she was still hoping someone would take her seriously. Will handled it clean. Asked her if she understood the penalties for filing a false report. Made her sign a formal trespass notice. Even gave her a warning ticket for parking half across the county road. She peeled out like a teenager after prom. I figured that'd be the end of it. It wasn't. Next thing I know, 2 days later, I catch her and 2 HOA stooges crawling through a break in my west fence line, clipboards, portable printer, the whole 9 yards. Said they were conducting a VY-SUL harmony assessment. I told them the only harmony out here was between me and my shovel if they didn't get off my land. They left, eventually, but not before handing me a paper that cited me for things like excessive barn proximity and rooster decibel interference. I laughed so hard Tucker started howling. But the best part of the part one didn't expect was how fast karma came knocking. Because after that stunt, Will did some digging, and turns out Margot had filed over 40 nuisance reports in 3 months most against folks who didn't even live in her HOA. The DA opened a file. A week later, at 4:30 in the morning, she rammed my gate, drove her SUV straight into it, busted the post, and scattered my bulls out near the creek. Then get this, she stuck a sign in the ground that read, "Unsafe structure, HOA enforcement action." Had the HOA logo printed on it, and everything. Problem was, she left half her bumper behind. Will showed up within the hour, took the footage from my cameras, bagged the fake sign, and filed vandalism charges. Margot got arrested that same afternoon in front of her whole neighborhood. One of her own neighbors filmed it and set the video to country music. It got shared over 80,000 times. But the story didn't end with handcuffs. See, Margot, despite all that, had filed one last complaint the night before her arrest, claiming I was running an illegal storage facility in my barn. That triggered a county inspection. But what she didn't know is my barn's certified as an emergency supply depot by the Volunteer Fire Service VYC and approved under rural development guidelines. I didn't just have permission, I had plaques. When the county rep came by, Will came with him. We walked through the barn, showed him the supplies, the generator hookups, the fire hose spools. The inspector smiled and said, "Looks like you're running a tighter ship than most of our municipal shelters." I thought that was the end. Then Clara showed up. Clara was the treasurer for White Rock Preserve HOA, a quiet woman with the kind of eyes that seen too much and talked too little. She came by the ranch, took her hat off at the porch, and said, "I'm sorry." Told me she'd been railroaded for months, that Margot had bullied the board into silence, that half the fines sent out were never approved by vote. She handed me a folder with 37 resident signatures calling for Margot's removal. A week later, Clara and VY told me to sit in on their emergency community meeting. I didn't speak. I just sat in the back with a cup of black coffee while Clara showed them everything: emails, footage, even a clip of Margot saying, "If we can't get him to sell, we'll make ranch life miserable." They voted. Unanimous. Margot was stripped of all HOA duties and referred to the county for misuse of funds. 3 months later, her trial came. I testified. Will did too. Clara brought the receipts. The judge didn't take long. Found her guilty of vandalism, false reporting, and misappropriation. Gave her 6 months probation, a fine, and a permanent restraining order keeping her 1,000 feet from my land. The board sent me a formal apology and get thesis certificate naming me honorary rural boundary ad VY SOR. I framed it. Hung it in the barn. Folks ask if I regret any of it, and honestly, not a bit. Sometimes people like Margot think they can outpaper you, out-scheme you, wear you down with policies and fake power. But when the land is yours, when the truth's on your side, and when your boy's wearing the badge, well, let's just say some fences don't need rebuilding. They just need defending. And if you're still watching, maybe you've dealt with a Margot in your life at work, in your neighborhood, maybe even your family. Maybe you kept your head down, thinking they'd move on. But here's my ad VYC: next time they push, don't push back in anger. Push back in truth. Record everything. Call your allies. And if you're lucky enough to have a sheriff for a son, well, give him a good story to tell at the next department barbecue. Now tell me, if someone like Margot came for your land, your way of life, would you have stood your ground too?